Hey there, before we jump into today's show, this episode is brought to you by Gladly, and I've got to tell you, they're changing the game when it comes to customer service. Now, if you tried dealing with duplicate tickets or fragmented conversations across all your channels, you'll love what Gladly does. They really bring everything all together. Think chat, email, phone, social media, everything all together in one seamless conversation that really is centered more around the customer and not just a ticket number. And what really caught my eye when I read some of the case studies on their website was just how many of the best direct-to-consumer brands, think like Allbirds and Bombas, Rockies, Third Love, there's a whole pile of them here, they're all using Gladly's platform to boost their agents' productivity. And imagine your team having a complete view of each customer's history, which means faster resolutions and happier customers who keep coming back. And I've seen the numbers. I know their clients are getting incredible ROI while building stronger customer relationships. So if you're ready to transform your operations, you should go totally check them out. They're at gladly.com, and you can join over 300 of the world's most successful brands.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt, and today I'm really excited to unpack a challenge that I know for an absolute fact that many Shopify merchants are experiencing today. Today, I would like to welcome Sam Palero, and he's the founder and CEO of a company called The Moonlighters, and they're at themoonlighters.com. And what they are a very specialized kind of media buying agency that really are here to assist with, in most cases, Shopify-powered brands and how they approach kind of Facebook and Google advertising. It's very unique kind of what they do. They have a really neat framework that they call the M3 method, which I know we're going to unpack a bit. One thing I found quite interesting too is Sam's background. He was working with Gary Vaynerchuk over at Vanier Media for a while, and also was the director of marketing at BARK, which is part of the BarkBox group, which we all know of. And he brings over a decade of kind of hands-on experience, really helping direct-to-consumer brands to grow and scale and kind of improve efficiency. So I really want to unpack a lot. I think it's very timely right now. Just acquisition costs are so expensive. Competition's increasing. It's an exciting time to be in commerce, but it also has those kind of interesting challenges of how you scale up. So hi, Sam. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Very happy to be here. It's an honor.
My pleasure. So, Sam, let's unpack a bit first. Let's talk a bit about the challenge right now in advertising. I'm going to jump right into it because I think right now, the research that I've figured out is that it's 3 times more expensive today for ad costs than it was in 2021. And so what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing now for these kind of brands that are, above $1 million? So they have a good product market fit, but what's been happening right now? Is it competition, or is it just Facebook and Google being a little bit evil?
Yeah. So basically what we've seen, to go back to your point there, is that we've seen a tripling in advertising costs since 2020. Now, that sounds like a pretty okay time frame because it's 5 years. But when you actually think about that historically, CPMs, or cost per 1,000 impressions on average, have doubled every 7 years. So we tripled in 5.
I see.
That's a light hockey stick, the way that I see it. And
Yeah.
It might not be, we're not the goalie yet, but we're early days here of that hockey stick, and that's very concerning from my perspective. Now, what that means for the big businesses is they're just going to continue to spend. To be honest, they move quite slowly when it comes to things like this. And they often just have the same annual plan modified every year. What that means for a lot of the businesses that we work with in that $1 to $10 million revenue range, but more specifically for any nimble business, for a business that's specifically Shopify focused or e-commerce focused, that's trying to grow more year over year. Again, just starting out or, already having some success. It means that one of the vehicles, being Facebook ads or Google ads, are going to definitively be more expensive. And there's a whole lot of reasons for this. I mean, people know 101 different ways that this works, but to keep it really short, tools like Facebook in their Advantage Plus broad ecosystem has been pushed tremendously over the last year to 2 years. And then things on the Google side, like Performance Max only, has been pushed in a massive way. All of these tools make every single person that logs on to the ad platform, if you're scrolling on Instagram, if you're scrolling on Facebook, if you're searching on Google, it has made all of those folks more monetizable. We could show ads to every single person all the time, 24/7, 365. And I like to pull back a little bit from that and think, is that what's actually best for driving profits for a business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting. You know, one thing I've learned too along the way right now, when you talk about these different kind of ad platforms, is the fact, and I think Apple really started this whole thing about this kind of cookie apocalypse and kind of like keeping a lot of the data to themselves. Have you found that being a little bit of a challenge for a brand today, of like about understanding true attribution? And I have kind of a follow-up question around that, but like what are people doing in lieu of each of these walled gardens, kind of trying to take attribution for everything, but what is truly the reality of, you know, effort of ads equals like revenue?
Yeah. So attribution is super tricky these days.
Yeah,
I think anyone would in this space agrees, right? Like,
yeah,
there's so many touch points. And what I love to think about when I'm running a brand, and this comes from basically my experience when I was running BarkBox with a group of amazing people. We had a king metric. A metric that no matter what, as long as we knew we hit this one single metric, we were all going to be okay. And what I've found over time is that the best, most successful businesses, the businesses that are building predictable, repeatable systems that are scaling very aggressively, those businesses have that king kind of metrics. And to get back to the attribution plan, why this is so important is because when we use tools like Triple Whale or even just Google Analytics or any of the other third-party attribution tools out there, there's so much value in these tools, but we get really caught in little things, right? We've had some clients, for example, they get really, really caught in new customer acquisition only, right? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all they care about is new NCPA. If all you care about is NCPA, then you're going to potentially lose sight on what the real goal is, which for them was also just profit. So finding that balance with third-party attribution has been very, very tricky, especially for like small to medium-sized businesses that might not know exactly the direction that they need to head in to get to that promised land that they're kind of looking for.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I had some clarity on that. Nice to have someone on the front lines that actually gets it, because I've interviewed a few of the kind of third-party attribution people, like the Triple Whale, the Hyros, North Beam, Polar, these kind of guys, and they do have some great solutions. I think they're trying to solve that problem, because it seems that every time, all of the Facebook always takes attribution, no matter when it happens in the customer journey. When it happened a long time ago, and there was potentially a new ad that actually generated the sale, and Facebook tries to get themselves full attribution for it, and it's not fair or right. And I think that's where these third-party tools kind of fit into the equation and kind of help maybe paint a better picture.
I very much agree. I think that they help a lot, but taking too much of the information at face value and saying, this is the only way I need to move, and then also simultaneously splitting yourself in a lot of directions, it's very hard for the operator to actually make the informed decision that gets you to the end goal and that sole focus.
Right. So let's talk a bit about this M3 method I talked about at the top of the show here. But first of all, what is it? And then how does this approach maybe differ from like conventional kind of advertising strategies?
Yeah. So at its core, if we kind of just scroll back to like, what is the actual purpose of media buying, right? Like, what's the purpose of even having someone that's a growth operator that's managing your ads outside of uploading and execution and maybe telling you this creative is doing well? What's the real purpose? From my perspective, at the highest of the highest levels, the purpose is to allocate cash, meaning your ad spend, wherever it's going to drive the highest return for your business incrementally. So there needs to be a hyper focus on minimizing wasted ad spend and reallocation of that ad spend to the best possible place. The M3 method, I'll admit, is a fancy way of saying a 3-step process. Now, what that actually means in practice is in phase 1 or M1, we call it bet on the fastest horse. The reason we call it very simply bet on the fastest horse is because we want to allocate our cash to the best possible time of day of week, age, demographic, platform placement, and landing page. Now, taking a quick step back because that's way overcomplicated and there's no actual action to perform on that. How we actually analyze that is we first start and we just look at the highest level. And this is where an attribution platform like a Triple Whale or a Hyros comes into great play. And we just look at what platforms are simply driving the most amount of revenue. Eliminate your branded search and then take it one step down, look at all of the prospecting based activities. Don't worry about perfection here. Get your 80 to 90% accuracy and just look at, is Google driving better for us? Is Meta driving better for us? Is something that I'm not talking about driving better, more sustainable revenue for the business? Make sure that cash is allocated to the proper place. Once that's taken care of, the next thing that we always look at the Moonlighters is day of week analysis. This is so undervalued. It is completely overlooked in this market. And it is one of the most common things. Steve, I know you come from a background of not only some media buying, but just e-com in general. There are days of the week that convert better than other days of the week for each individual business.
Right.
A quick story on this. When I was running at BarkBox, again, with a great team there, we'd come into the office every Monday morning. And I want to say for about the first 2, maybe even 3 months, I'd come into the office on a Monday and I would address the team and I would say, hey guys, great weekend, great weekend, great weekend, great weekend, every single Monday morning. And then I think maybe the coffee was a little bit stronger. We had that Wandering Bear tap in the office. It was a fresh stock. I recognized that there was a trend and I kind of felt a little silly, to be quite honest, in that moment. But what I realized was that, we didn't just have a good weekend. We have better weekends as this business. And I can't say exactly how much we were spending every single day, but let's hypothetically say we were spending tens of thousands of dollars Monday through Sunday every single day. 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, Monday through Sunday. What we did was we recognized that, okay, maybe we could spend a little bit more on Saturdays and Sundays. So without bringing this to our data team, and yes, this was a large organization, but without bringing it to anyone, we just said, let's take this 10 and let's just turn it to 15. Again, hypothetical numbers here, but let's turn it to 15. Let's see what happens. We came in that next Monday morning, and obviously I'm checking kind of throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
And we saw no resistance in our cost per acquisition. We saw no resistance in our, I know a lot of people probably like to look at return on ad spend. Basically, the core KPI that we were tracking did not see a downfall. And then we brought it to the data team and we realized very simply, when people spent more time with their dogs, they bought more dog toys. So that means for us, we need to spend a lot more when people are home with their dogs, whether it's on a holiday, whether it's on the weekend. And at peak, what that did, this business was worth about $180 million at the time when in 2018, I believe. And then after a 3-year run of doing this and basically unlocking a totally new amount of spend on Saturdays and Sundays, fast forward 3 years, company went public at peak worth $2.5 billion. Now, that's not the only thing that went right, of course, but the way that I think about it is we unlocked basically 3 weeks of spending every week, where previously we were spending the same every single day. And then we started spending, again, hypotheticals, but 10, 10, 10, 10, 50, 50, 50. And that really transformed how I thought about growth marketing, how I really just perceived that the most important thing is spending cash where you're most likely to actually drive a return.
I see. I think I've seen that with other businesses too. And you're talking about like day parting is one thing, but day of the week is kind of, it's not just time, it's actually the date. And I can exactly see in your particular situation too. And I think others need to be, I think that's a good takeaway right now. Others need to think about that. And then I've always wondered when people have this hypothetical amount of money that they're putting towards their net new customers. And why did they choose to cut off where they cut off? And I've seen kind of ad tools that can reallocate an existing amount of budget when you all of a sudden see that there's an uptick, because there can be anomalies that happen. You're just like, I'm not going to run out of money today if there's an anomaly happening that, and conversions are still happening. I need to reallocate money from another day over to now so they don't run out. Have you seen that sort of thing ever happen? Or is there some kind of like an AI or kind of a dynamic situation? You're saying, hey, day of the week, this is important. We're going to hypothetically boost it up because they're with their dogs and they want to buy toys. I get that. But what happens if these anomalies or strange things happen in the middle of the night, or something pops off on social and all of a sudden you run out of money?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm definitely talking on the manual, consistent, evergreen basis. But what you're getting into, this is going to get complex. This is actually our M3.
Okay.
I'll start on M2 and then I'll merge it all together. So M2 of what we call is essentially we want to build a predictable system. We audit dozens and dozens of ad accounts. What we normally see is two things. We either see overly simplified accounts that look like 1 or 2 or 3 Advantage Plus campaigns, all broad, smash all your creatives in there, cross your fingers. Or we see overly complex accounts. Advantage Plus, 2 CBOs, a couple ABO campaigns in there, a sale that's still running that never stopped doing well, things that are just all over the place. And what that means to me is there's really not a common place for what a structure should look like. And to be honest, every structure, every account that we work doesn't necessarily follow this framework perfectly, but this is the core. This is what's most important to build. Now, I talk about this publicly. I talk about this on YouTube. This is not any sort of secret, but the key of the actual M2, our predictable system that we like to build, most specifically on the Facebook side, is that there's a scaling mechanism. We have swim lanes in our account, meaning we have clear, what people will call bottom funnel, top funnel, mid funnel, or top, mid, bottom. We call it prospecting for new customers, retargeting for people who have engaged with the brand, and then retention to keep existing customers buying again. Either which way, doesn't matter. The core is that you have a prospecting campaign that graduates the top performing creatives into a scaling mechanism. And you have rules in place that don't allow you to be a human being, basically, that force not necessarily all algorithmic, but that force you based on sets of numbers to know when you're going to graduate. That's key.
Yeah, I love this. Today is like a really good learning for me because this is like much more advanced than what I have done in the past or what I know in the brands that I've managed in the past. But I can see how this is, and that's why I have you on the show today, because that's just life of learning is my mantra, right? And so I totally get this predictable system that you've built up here, and it makes a lot of sense. How people can graduate from an entry level kind of top of funnel awareness campaigns, and how that prospecting kind of moves its way along to winning ad creative, and they go to the next step.
Yeah. Should I take it away and bring us into M3?
Yeah, let's go to M3 because I think, and I think from what I can see, because I did a tiny bit of research, I think this is, and I don't know what the name is, but I'm just calling it measure. But it seems like there's this performance tracking thing, or maybe this is the data-driven AI side of it about how can we, or incrementality maybe fits into all of this.
Yeah. So where the third part of our system comes into play is the heavy measurement of everything to make sure that all of these 3 steps are actually worth it for every business, because we don't want to be in a situation where we just shred apart an ad account or multiple ad accounts and cross our fingers again. We want to be in a situation where we know definitively that each step of this works so that we have minimal turbulence with the businesses that we work with. Now, the last part of the M3 method, the M3, is taking back control. I think that we are in a state right now between Facebook and Google where people feel like these platforms are black boxes. This is very common. It feels a little overwhelming. Now, I know that Facebook and I know that Google, based on conversations that I've had, I know they're making progress on making people feel a little bit more in the light. But when you talk to a lot of business owners and you say, why aren't you running Advantage Plus, or why aren't you running Performance Max? Often what comes up is, well, I just had no idea what was working. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know how to scale it. We hit a wall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I call M3 take back control, because right now there's a huge change and shift going on in the market. And the reason I position this as take back control is because we've built making sure we're spending our money at the right time of day, at the right day of week, and then more specifically, what platforms. 2, we have a predictable system that we like to call our predictable Facebook system. And then M3 is where we introduce cost controls to the account. Now, cost controls, some people know these as cost caps. You can call them bid caps, whatever you want. 99% of advertisers are using highest volume. Just about everyone.
Right.
The sneaky stat is that a huge portion, I don't know the exact number, but I've been told it's right around 40 to 50% of the total spend in Facebook ads is in a cost control or a cost cap environment. That tells me the biggest brands that we all want to be, that we all want to grow to be, they use cost caps. So when you ask about like the intraday, the minutia, right? What happens when there's an anomaly event? That's where cost caps really come into play and do a lot of work for us. So we really like to roll out cost caps. Once we know M1 and M2 are firing away, we're talking 3 to 6 months down the road, then we consider rolling cost caps out. Now, I want to give a warning to brands out there that are potentially in the smaller side of spend. And when I say smaller side of spend, I really mean sub $10,000, even sub $50,000 in ad spend per month.
Okay.
I know that sounds like a lot of money. It is, obviously. But keeping in mind, if you run cost caps too early, you're going to stunt the growth of the account. You really only want to roll these out when you feel really confident in the scale that you're already getting and you found a place of stability in the account.
I see. I have a question around creative, because I also feel that even brands that maybe can successfully allocate their cash, as you said, they have somewhat of a predictable system. Now you're talking about, M3 is this take back control. And all of that I get.
Yeah.
How do you factor in the quality of the creative and the potential kind of, I'm going to call it banner blindness, things that kind of happen? Like how do brands, and how do you measure the success of it, and then the amount of ad creative? Can you use UGC? Is the market different today than it has been in the past? There was a lot of questions here, but I think ad creative really can differentiate a brand and allow for the cash to be spent more effectively because they're just really creative, effective ads.
I mean, is it fair to say that there's so many questions behind this because it's so overwhelming?
It is. Yeah. I know.
I agree. I think that the way that, to put this into an analogy, like Facebook ads is like a car, or Google ads is like a car. They operate generally very similarly, even though they feel like very different products. And if we have the engine, which is very much strategy and structure, that's what we'd like to focus on. The creative is the body of the car. Right. I could have I'm not a car guy, but I could have a Ferrari engine in a beat up Honda Civic, which I used to have. And I could drive down, fly by someone, and everyone would just be like, wow, look at that crappy car driving by. And no one would think twice about it. But if I took that same car and I had the, whatever example, Maserati body or Ferrari body, whatever I said before, with the correct engine, and then I drove by at the exact same speed, you believe that people turn heads. And that's the exact same analogy of what to think about how to use your creative. Now, from a creative perspective, it is super important. It's a huge variable here. And in terms of number of creatives tested and how much money to spend on your creative tests, one of the things that I emphasize heavily in M2 in that like predictable system, and kind of a theme, especially a theme like when we're on the early days of a relationship, is limiting wasted spend and reallocation of that spend. It is very common for you to hear, I don't know, it's just been something that's been adopted, of you spend 20% of your budget on creative testing. I promise you, not a single big brand out there, no brand that's spending $1 million a month, which is a boatload of money, no one is spending 20% of their spend on creative testing. You want to minimize the amount that you're actually creative testing, and you want to leverage the algorithm in the Facebook side, which is so incredible. Facebook could recognize within just a couple hundred impressions if it's actually going to be a creative that is scalable. Facebook looks at shares, they look at the reach, they look at the click-through rates, they look at the engagement rate, meaning just someone physically looking at the ad longer or touching any part of it. If those signals are not happening, Facebook is going to suppress that ad very quickly. They're not going to allow it to spend aggressively. And if you put that ad in a forced environment where you're saying, you must get a bunch of spend against this ad, you are severely hurting your chances as an account to grow. You need to make sure that you leverage the algorithm, because the algorithm works just like the organic side. The best content rises above all. It's the cheapest to run. It gets the cheapest clicks. It gets the best click-through rates, gets more people to your site. That's where I really fall on the creative side. Limit that wasted spend.
You know what I've noticed too from others is I think like high performing kind of ad creatives come from what I've seen are more like kind of the problem kind of solution kind of UGC ads. For some reason, I don't know I don't know if it's the TikTok world we're in or what it is, but it seems interesting that, like influencers or customers kind of like actually demonstrating the product. There's something raw and authentic about these little short, I don't know, 5-second videos.
Yeah.
They convert like insane. Is this something that's kind of hot right now? Like, what's the rationale behind this sort of ad creative that's working so well?
Yeah, I think like this is a perfect like AI conversation too, because there's so much like AI creative going into the market. You cannot create authenticity. I believe there is just a little thing in the back of our head, or call it your gut, that just knows, is what I'm seeing completely real, or is what I'm seeing a little bit of is there a little something off here, right? And when I think about what you just said, I think that the best ads absolutely are either 100% real UGC, like true user generated content. But my favorite ever is the founder ad. I think that everyone should get behind the microphone or behind the camera. We all have iPhones these days. Plug your headphones in, show your product, and simply say, my name is Sam Polero and I own this product and this is what it does. I did this because. Tell your story. Tell people why you made the product. Tell people why it's better. It's one of the best ways. And it doesn't matter if you are a $100 million business or literally haven't had a sale yet. Get behind the camera and talk authentically about why your product is better.
It's funny you mentioned that. So I'm a big fan of VRA. They have retail. They're doing their thing. They're really scaling up. What's interesting about VRA is the actual founder does exactly what you're saying. He actually has a video on the product details page and talks about like why you'll love these pants. And he's very authentic in his showroom with all these swatches on the wall and all his different pants. And he physically talks about it. And he says like, I wear these, like, honestly, I'm wearing them right now, not just because I'm the founder. These things are freaking awesome. Yeah. Like, I took me forever to design these things and I love them. It's a 1-minute video, but it converts like wildfire. I know for a fact that VRA is crushing it right now. And you're hitting the nail on the head.
I won't take too much time on that one, but like, I am literally wearing a Viore shirt right now. And I just made a video about 4 hours ago on that exact snippet. They also run it as an ad.
It's hot. It's amazing. Yeah. This is so cool. Yeah. My other question I have for you is around, since you are an agency and you do take on clients and you really do help brands kind of scale up, I find that sometimes the agency relationship can be a little bit of a struggle. And I think sometimes they fall into this trap of expectations, and sometimes there's just not great alignment about like where they are in their entrepreneurial journey and their brand, and then the value that the agency actually brings to the brand. So what's your thoughts on that? Like, what should Shopify merchants look for when they're selecting an agency? Are there any red flags or anything they should watch out for? But then specifically, if you can tie it back to the perfect kind of client that the Moonlighters could and do attract.
I'll speak on this from a perspective of someone who I worked at a large agency prior at VaynerMedia. I ran brand side for a few years and now own an agency. So I've kind of seen it from 3 different primary perspectives. And I think it depends very much on where you're at in the journey of your business. That's the biggest caveat I can give here. One thing that you always want to look out for is, why is the company that you're working with built? And always being sure that you're never the smallest fish and you're never the biggest fish. if you're the smallest fish in a big pond, if there's an agency that you know has hundreds and hundreds of clients and you are on the very, very, very small side of what they're even willing to accept, or if you have to beg them to accept you, it's a miss. I promise. On the flip side, if you're the biggest in that agency, there may be a scenario where if they're growing with you, if they made you the biggest, sure, keep rolling for sure. We have, of course, we have our biggest client. Someone has to be the biggest, but that specific client has been working with us for years. We've grown them from just a couple $1 million to now $20, $30 million. And that is the relationship you want to stay in. Now, things to look out for in a relationship or any kind of agency relationship, really thinking about who are you actually going to work with rather than who are you being potentially talked to and sold by. Most agency relationships have an account executive, and then they have a media buyer staffed somewhere either overseas or very junior level. And that works economically great for the agency. The account executive works on 10 or 15 people, 20 accounts, but even potentially media buyer works on 5 or 6 accounts, but they're very junior level, not getting paid that much. And agency makes out like bandits. They profit really, really high from that. And that could work sometimes, especially in very, very early stages. But what we have found is that doesn't work too well. And what I wanted to create when I built the Moonlighters was, what's the most similar experience that I could have for a brand that I personally have been able to give the brands that I've consulted for over years? And what that looked like was, let's trim a lot of the fat. Let's essentially remove everything that's not necessary, keep our costs as stable as possible on our side to give the client the best experience with what's absolutely most essential. So it sounds great. And what it basically means is we hire growth directors. Growth directors on our side have 7+ years experience in Facebook ads, Google ads, and Shopify. So the growth director on our team, or teams, I shall say, is essentially the person that not only provides your strategy, creates your setup, talks to you in your Slack channel every single day, meets with you once a week, does your creative analysis, your creative breakdowns. They also execute on the actual media. For us, that person's not split across 10 or 15 accounts. They're working on much less, but they're really focused and they can have high impact. So for all purposes, if you love your growth director when you work with us, you're going to stick with us for a really, really long time. And I think that gives the clients that we work with a lot of peace and allows them to create really good relationships with their growth directors, almost like they're some extension of the actual company that they are, plus having a lot of insight from the greater group.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to this also, I love the trim the fat concept that you made, but it's just like, I also think that a lot of D2C brands that choose to work with agency partners, a lot of times they're very short-term focused because they've been doing a lot of things in-house on their own, but then they've identified the fact they don't have the skill set, but all of a sudden it's in this urgent and important quadrant. And now they want to go and hire an agency partner. And then but the problem is though, it's not an instant quick fix. And I think that's one thing that I notice a lot. And I also notice too about the communication side. I feel that poor communication between an agency and a brand, I think, is a major reason why relationships tend to break down or kind of get misaligned a bit about where they're at, what they're working on. Because there's nothing worse than like paying a retainer to somebody. Sometimes it's performance-based kind of opportunities, but on the other side, it's retainer-based. And sometimes you kind of wonder, like, and the brand thinks, what are you working on right now? Like, I know you have lots of other clients, but like, when do you allocate time for me? And I think it's just all part of that trust, that cultural thing that you talked about. It's just like, I think that's important. So that's kind of more on top of my head.
I very much agree. People like to feel like they're getting their hand held, and they should. They're paying money. Yeah. They should, right? You're paying for a tour guide. You want to know every single part of the city or whatever example you want to give. And in this case, like, some clients that work with us, they don't care at all about the details. Are you hitting the return on ad spend target? Good. Okay. Other clients, they want to know every detail. And that you have to adapt to the relationship. You have to communicate up to the level that the client wants. And for us, what that usually means is over communicate until you're basically told to stop.
Yeah. Okay. 100%. I know you talked about Google and Facebook. I kind of mentioned a little bit about TikTok, but are there any emerging channels outside of the Facebook and Googles of the world Is YouTube a thing? Can you sell on YouTube? Are people doing it? Like, is there a different strategy? I just curious to see overall with your current clients, other than Facebook and Google, which I know YouTube is, but just I'm curious overall net, where are we allocating budgets, and is there something new and up and coming? Does Gen AI have anything to do with any of this? Can you buy in Perplexity now? And like lots of stuff going on, right?
Yeah, there is a lot moving and a lot's going to change. The landscape's going to continue to change. From my perspective, I don't want brands to get too far away from what actually works. I don't think catching the next trend for 30 days is going to transform a business. People get shiny object syndrome a lot. And that's even why I'm hesitating to even say some of the things that are on my mind, because like people will jump to it and forget the fact that Meta ads is still young. Like TV ads have been around for what? 50
years. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they're still working.
Clearly.
Like,
yeah.
Cranking actually. And like people think that Meta is just dying or Google might die. They're not going anywhere. These ad platforms have hundreds of millions, billions of dollars flowing into them. They are so dialed in. I think these are the most important platforms, period. And while things change, Meta's name is literally Meta, right? They are going to be on the cutting edge of all things AI, especially when it comes to blending AI and commerce, because they have the pulse. They're better than TikTok still. And if they weren't, all the budget would be on TikTok if they were not as good there. And it's clear, follow the dollars until they say otherwise.
It's interesting with the TV side of it. I remember, just Super Bowl obviously came and went, but man, people are dropping $8 million for a 30-second ad spot. I remember when I was managing Dr. Squatch, the men's soap company, and they made a last minute kind of like deal with the network to run an ad. It massively crushed for them, but it was a long-term play. Yes, it was instant uplift, like, hundreds of thousands of people hitting the website, like in that 30-second spot. People are waiting for these ads to come out. And Dr. Squatch was in their early days. This was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they ran their first ad. They never redid it again, but it had a long-term trickle effect. So TV still works. This is maybe at the highest level. They had that like $3 or $4 million they spent for it. And, they're a VC funded kind of big company now. And now they're in full retail and doing their thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Let's keep our eggs in the baskets that are actually working. So before we kind of wrap up for today's show, this has been really, you can't see, I can see you, but I'm on page 3 now of notes. So it's been a good session for me, and I appreciate that. It's a lot of great learnings. I love this M3 method. I think it's incredible. It's going to make really good show notes to educate people about allocating their cash in a predictable system and taking back control. I think this is really great. I'll expand a little bit further in the show notes. What do you think some of the next steps are? There's going to be some early stage people that are listening right now that may not be a good fit for your agency today. What's one little quick win that you could kind of share with them? And then as a follow-up, what do you believe the clients and customers and merchants that are listening today that are a good fit? Is there a GMV or complexity kind of component that would maybe make the Moonlighters a good fit for them?
Yeah. What I'll start with is first, no matter if you're day 1 or your day 10,000 with multiple millions of dollars of sales, I post a lot of content completely for free on YouTube. Most of the structures, the setups, everything that we go through. And again, coming from the Gary Vaynerchuk agency days, if anyone has taught me, it's jab, jab until they ask. Yeah, literally. Until they put their chin up and they're ready for it. That's the approach that I'm personally taking. So feel free to just download it all, get all the info, all good there. Now, to actually grab a win for the smallest day ones, or even you've been grinding at this for a year, you've had $20,000, $30,000 in sales, you're trying to get over the next hump. Take a look at who's 3 or 4 steps ahead of you. That's first. Understand, is there someone in the market that's not my North Star? We all want to be Nike, but we're not going to be Nike. Who's a step ahead that you think is, if you're doing $100,000 annually or 10K a month, who's doing 100K a month right now? And how could you replicate what they're doing, and how can you do it better? That would be first from like a site perspective. The second thing would be, look at your product honestly. If you use your product every day and you love your own product, tell the world about it. That is one of the most key things that I think people forget. People get really caught up in, does my website do this, that? Does my ad speak the right way? All this jam. Your product needs to be loved. And there's no quick way, there's no fix around this. Even if the most famous celebrities tweet about your product or are caught using your product somewhere, yes, you'll get some sales, no doubt about it, but those sales won't stick. And the only way you have a sticky e-commerce business that comes back over and over and over again and builds steadily with existing customers and new customers is your product needs to be A+. So always consider that. And I really encourage people, think about where you're cutting cost. Think about what you're doing in your product and how you could truly make it better, especially when it comes to clothing and beauty and wellness products. There is a way to improve your product, and you are likely cutting slight costs out of things, whether it's on material or whether it's on formula. On a bigger level, to work with the Moonlighters, we basically want to see at least $10,000 to $20,000 per month in ad spend. Ideally, we really want to see a trajectory to increase that. So every relationship that we're evaluating, yes, I do want to see you at least you've spent $10,000 in the platform in the last 30 days. But what I care about the most is there a true path to take you from $10,000 to $100,000 a month? And then there's going to be more battles once we're at 100,000. But how do we get from 100 to $1 million per month? And that's just not ad spend, right? That only happens if the revenue is driving as a result of that ad spend. So when I think about clients that are more on that enterprise level or mid-market level, Shopify Plus merchants or Shopify Advanced level, you've probably found good product market fit. You've probably found a lot of good things that are truly working. The next piece is just to make it more predictable and more scalable. And that usually comes, that's why people knock on our door, because they're doing 8 out of 10 in a lot of categories of e-commerce, but the media buying side might be a 4 out of 10.
I see.
If you feel like you don't have a pulse on things, if you feel like your current media buyer, your current agency doesn't inform you on what's going on, and most especially, if your growth team, your media buyer, however you're categorizing your marketing team, your growth operators on your team, if they're not blending your metrics to your total business profit, wake up a little bit on it. I think that's key. You have to make sure that your bank account at the end of the month correlates to what's actually going on from an ad spend and a growth perspective.
Yeah, this is amazing advice. I just went to your YouTube channel. You're crushing it. I'll make sure I put that. It's Sam Polaro.
Thank you.
It's Polaro or Polaro? What's the correct pronunciation?
It's Polaro.
Polaro. Okay,
Yes.
good. So it's at Sam Polaro. I'll put that in the show notes. You're on your way. You're getting lots and lots of views. And you know what? Once again, you're paying it forward, really, to be quite honest with you. And I think it's all part of, exactly what Gary says. It's just like we're in a gold rush right now from a social media perspective. And this is the best way to kind of share your expertise out into the wild. And the cards fall when they may. I think you've kind of set the stage for the right people that are listening today. Hey, if you're in your early days, here's sort of things you should be working on. But if you're, kind of further along the 10K plus kind of per month of ad spend, you're looking to scale that up to 100, then the Moonlighters could be a great opportunity and certainly worth a conversation. I think that's probably the first step. And so I understand you have like a special offer too for those that want to learn more about the Moonlighters. I'll kind of pass the torch to you, so to speak, and let me know what offer you want to share with our listeners.
Yeah, first off, kind words. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, on our side, we keep it pretty simple. So anyone that comes from the e-commerce Fastlane podcast, either let us know or shoot it in the notes on our call, and we'll just completely remove the onboarding fee that we normally charge. That could be at minimum $2,000, even higher, depending on the complexity of your account. I don't want that to deter people, but if you are watching this, absolutely, we'll waive that.
Okay. This is lovely. Well, thank you so much for that. I massively appreciate it. This has been very, very eye-opening. I think I want to wish you continued success. There's a lot of great case studies, video case studies on your homepage. There's a lot of clients that are extremely happy with kind of like what you've done. I think once again, like you've put in the hard work over the years through Vanier and then in through the BarkBox group and stuff like that. And now continued on with your own agency. So I think this is pretty exciting times to be in commerce. And I appreciate you and your team and kind of what you guys are up to. And I think this has really been a great episode, but thanks again for recording.
Thank you, Steve. I very much appreciate it. Happy to be here.
All right. Have yourself a great afternoon.
You too.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.